Hi guys, and welcome to this new episode of The Inexplicable. On June 30th, 1908, on a summer morning in remote Siberia, the sky exploded. Without warning, a blinding light tore through the clouds above the taiga. A flash of fire was followed by a shockwave that knocked down over 80 million trees in an area spanning more than 2,000 square kilometers. A destructive force far greater than that of the Hiroshima bomb. But no crater was ever found. No metal fragments, no celestial body, no definitive explanation. Science has tried several times to provide answers: a meteorite, a comet, an atmospheric explosion. Yet every theory leaves room for new questions and fuels a disturbing possibility. And what if what happened at Tunguska wasn't a natural phenomenon at all? What if that devastation was the sign of something that came from another world? So here is the enigma of Tunguska, an alien impact never solved. It's done. As I said at the beginning, it was June 30, 1908, when something colossal happened in the remote expanses of central Siberia near the stony Tunguska River. At 7:17 in the morning, a violent explosion shattered the silence of the Siberian taiga. The earth trembled, the sky burned. The inhabitants of the village of Vanavera, located about 60 kilometers away, reported seeing a huge fiery object streak across the sky, leaving a trail of smoke behind it. Azzurrognolo. Then a blinding flash, followed by a boom so powerful that it threw people into the air and shattered window panes, over 400 kilometers away. Witnesses spoke of a sun exploding in the sky, of a thunder that shook the earth, and of a shock wave so violent it felt like facing the apocalypse. All accounts, though fragmentary, agreed on one thing: no one had seen anything like it. One of the eyewitnesses, Semen Semenov, described it like this: "At first I saw the sky split in two and a great fire cover the forest. Right after, the sky closed up again and I heard a loud bang before I felt myself lifted off the ground and thrown several meters away." The shock wave almost derailed some trains on the Trans-Siberian Railway, 600 kilometers from the impact site. Other effects were even felt in London, where at that moment, even though it was midnight, the sky was so bright and illuminated that you could read a newspaper without artificial light. Years later, when the Russian mineralogist Leonid Alexeyevich Kulik and his team managed to reach the epicenter of the event in an extremely isolated and inaccessible area, at the time they were shocked. In front of them was a surreal landscape. Over 2,000 square kilometers of forest were completely flattened. More than 80 million trees were knocked to the ground, all bent radially, as if they had been struck by a massive explosive wave. But there was an even more disturbing detail. Unlike what one would have expected, there was no real crater. No hole, no obvious fragments, only felled trees, and an epicentral area where the trunks were burned but remained standing, as if the explosion had happened in the air. This is where the mystery starts. There were no official victims, since the area was nearly uninhabited, with only a few nomadic groups and a Vinki. But there were strange consequences. Some witnesses reported severe headaches, fever, nausea. Others mentioned animals going crazy or that compasses in that area had stopped working. Some even claimed to see creatures of light floating in the night sky in the following days. Were they just suggestions, collective hallucinations, or the effect of something more sinister? Since then, the Tunguska mystery has fascinated generations of scientists, ufologists, and cosmic mystery enthusiasts. Because that wasn't just a simple event, it was the beginning of a mystery that still doesn't have a definite answer today. Let's hear from science. When trying to rationally explain the mystery of the Tunguska explosion, the starting point is almost always the same: the hypothesis of a celestial body. According to the most widely accepted theory, the one supported by the majority of the scientific community, the apocalypse of Tunguska would have been caused by a solid rock asteroid with a diameter between 30 and 60 meters. A space giant moving over 54,000 kilometers per hour. Instead of impacting the ground, it would have exploded in the air at about 8 kilometers of altitude. Friction with Earth's atmosphere would have rapidly heated the celestial object, shattering it and converting its kinetic energy into a huge thermal explosion. The result? Well, a devastating shockwave. But one question remains and casts a shadow of doubt on this theory. Why was nothing left? Many studies have attempted to replicate the event over the years. The scientist Arte Nieva from the Institute for Geosphere Dynamics in Moscow confirmed that the asteroid would have disintegrated between 5 and 10 kilometers in altitude. Others, including Mark Boslow from Sandia National Laboratories, estimated the explosion's power at 3 to 5 megatons, dozens of times stronger than the Hiroshima bomb. If you think events like this are rare, know this. On average, a similar impact could occur once every 600 years. But every day, small meteorites enter the Earth's atmosphere. Some burn up, others explode silently above our heads. In short, theoretically, the possibility of such a large-scale event caused by an asteroid was more than real. And again, the nuclear tests of the 1950s and 60s show something surprising. The trees in Tunguska had been hit in a way similar to those near an airburst explosion. Trees under the epicenter stood but were charred and stripped of branches, while those around were swept away like bowling pins. A Soviet experiment in the 1960s reproduced the butterfly pattern of destruction using small explosions on scale models. According to this reconstruction, the object would have hit the atmosphere at an angle of about 30 degrees coming from the northeast. But what was that celestial object made of? A National Aeronautics and Space Administration and University of Wisconsin simulation found the asteroid was neither ferrous nor carbonaceous. If it had been made of iron, it would have hit the ground, leaving a visible crater. If it had been made of materials that were too fragile, it would have disintegrated too high up to cause the devastation we observed. Anyway, are these studies enough to solve the case once and for all? Well, I would say definitely not. And given the numerous unknowns related to this version of events, not even a completely different theory. In 1930, the British astronomer Fred Whipple proposed an even more fascinating one. What if it had been a small comet? In fact, a comet made of ice and cosmic dust would have completely vaporized upon contact with the atmosphere, leaving very few traces. Researchers also noticed an unusual phenomenon. In the days following the explosion, unusually bright nights were observed in Europe, as if tiny particles suspended in the atmosphere were reflecting sunlight even after sunset. Exactly what you would expect from the tail of a comet. In 1978, Slovak astronomer Lubor Krisak proposed a more precise hypothesis. According to him, what exploded over Siberia was a fragment of the Encke comet, which causes the Beta Taurid meteor shower every year. The peak happens exactly during the days of the Tunguska event. In 2008, a three-dimensional simulation carried out by Utyusnikov and Rodinko further supported the comet hypothesis. Calculations show the object would have dissolved in the atmosphere, creating the shock wave that destroyed the forest. A year later, other scholars connected the formation of noctilucent clouds, high ice crystal clouds, to the large amount of water vapor released by the comet, a rare phenomenon like the one caused by the space shuttle during atmospheric re-entry. And in 2010, an expedition led by Vladimir Alexeyev examined the mysterious Suslov crater in Tunguska using a radar capable of penetrating the ground. He found something extraordinary, fragments compatible with a celestial body made of ice. A clue that seems to support the idea that a huge icy comet disintegrated the Siberian taiga with the sheer force of its aerial explosion. Anyway, at the beginning of the 1990s, the scientific community was still not satisfied. In 1991, a group of Italian scientists became interested in the case. They undertook one of the most thorough investigations of the event, which came close, if we can say so, to solving the case. Let's take a look at it together. New studies and a nearly solved mystery. As I was saying, starting in 1991 in the halls of the University of Bologna, the mystery of Tunguska began to resonate strongly once again. Driven by curiosity and a desire to solve a long-buried Siberian mystery, scientists from the Department of Physics organized expeditions into the heart of the taiga. Their mission to investigate the mysterious event that occurred in 1908. Russian researchers joined them in an international effort that defied the cold and centuries of mystery. The researchers did not dismiss the idea that a celestial body exploded in the air, but they believed that a fragment, a small block about a meter in size, could have survived the explosion and hit the ground. Perhaps they thought it was that very fragment that gave rise to a small lake hidden in the forest, Lake Chekko. Through field analysis and meticulous soil coring, the team manages to map the orientation of the fallen trees, still arranged in a centrifugal pattern around the epicenter. And they notice strange anomalies in the growth rings of the surviving trees to 1908. Everything appeared to converge on that small body of water about 8 kilometers northwest of the estimated epicenter. Was the lake actually the impact site? A sonar investigation revealed something surprising. The lake bed had a conical shape, consistent with that of an impact crater. Not only that, the analysis of the sediments showed a clear anomaly around 1908, a concentration of minerals foreign to the area, and even organic material that seemed to have settled right during that period. A small bathyscaphe explored the depths of the lake, documenting broken logs and debris that seemed to tell of a sudden, devastating explosion. In 2009, Italian geologist Luca Gasparini published the study results on the University of Bologna website. All evidence suggested Lake Chekko may have formed from the Tunguska impact. So a definitive resolution of the case. But the mystery, as often happens, took an unexpected turn. In 2017, Russian researchers revisited the site with updated tools and analyses. The data appeared to contradict the Italian hypotheses. Examining seabed sediments, they found a layer tainted by radionuclides from Soviet nuclear experiments in the 1950s. The depth of this layer allowed calculation of the lake's sedimentation rate, which was found to be 3.6 to 4.6 millimeter per year. By applying this value to the 126 cm of sediments analyzed, they obtained a minimum age of the lake of about 280 years. In other words, much older than the 1908 event. Not only that, Russian scientists also identified a physical limit. According to their calculations, a rocky meteorite of that size could not have survived entering the atmosphere intact, and at the same time maintain enough speed to create a similar crater. So what seemed to be a solved mystery ended up once again shrouded in the fog of mystery. And it's right here, in the void left by science, that alternative hypotheses creep in, extreme theories, it's time to dive into the alternative theories. At this point, you must be wondering what really caused the Tunguska explosion in 1908. Was it a celestial body or something beyond our understanding? If we think about that unprecedented devastation, 80 million trees knocked down, an explosion equal to 1,000 Hiroshima bombs, and no crater, it's normal to let your imagination fly toward other less conventional hypotheses. It's no surprise that, over the years, even more unsettling theories have emerged, some rational, others bordering on the unreal. Let's start with the most famous one, the one that has fired up the collective imagination for decades, the extraterrestrial hypothesis. According to this theory, the Tunguska event wasn't caused by a natural object, but by an alien spaceship. Yes, you heard that right. A vehicle from another world exploded or self-destructed for unknown reasons. Maybe to avoid a direct impact with Earth, because of a failed maneuver, or, as some suggest, to prevent the technology on board from falling into the wrong hands. This hypothesis is not just a modern fantasy. It was already formulated in the post-war period by the Soviet writer Alexander Kazantsev, one of the authors and pioneers of science fiction in the Soviet Union. In his stories, Kazantsev talked about spaceships that used atomic energy long before nuclear energy became public knowledge. But Kazantsev did not limit himself to fiction. He claimed that the evidence collected at Tunguska was actually compatible with a nuclear explosion long before the invention of the atomic bomb, just to be clear. So then, was it really an alien ship? Some Soviet ufologists in the 60s and 70s supported this theory with all their might. They said the explosion would have left unusual soil and tree traces, like increased radioactivity and magnetic anomalies in the area. Earth's magnetic field variations that can't be explained by the meteorite theory. But that's not the end of the story. If you thought the idea of an alien ship destroyed in midair was already unsettling enough, wait until you hear this. There's an even darker hypothesis that hovers around the Tunguska event, that of a secret military experiment that tragically spiraled out of control. According to some alternative theories, the 1908 explosion wasn't caused by a meteorite or a natural phenomenon, but by an experimental technology that was unknown at the time. An energy weapon, perhaps developed by a military power ahead of its time, or even coming from another time altogether. And yes, you heard that right, there are those who speculate that a time experiment went wrong in Tunguska. Some conspiracy theorists even go so far as to imagine a weapon from the future being catapulted back into the past at that time. A calculation error maybe, a malfunction during a time travel, or perhaps a deliberate test on how to interfere with events in the past. Science fiction? Well, maybe, but according to some theoretical physicists, space-time distortions, however unlikely, are not completely ruled out by the mathematics of general relativity. In the heart of Siberia, on that summer day in 1908, something might have opened up. Something we can't explain. Some independent researchers talk about an anomalous space-time wound, as if for a moment the laws of reality had given way, allowing energies or entities from another plane of existence to seep through. A side effect not yet understood, but possibly visible in the area's strange anomalies. And it's not over. Among the most fascinating and terrifying hypotheses is that of the so-called mini black hole, an infinitesimal fragment of the primordial universe, a cosmic remnant that, according to some, could pass through the Earth without completely destroying it, but generating a catastrophic shockwave. In this view, the Tunguska explosion would not even have been an explosion in the classic sense, but the consequence of the silent passage of a subatomic black hole through our planet. It entered Siberia and exited from another part of the globe, leaving behind only devastation and mystery. And yet, more than a century later, the mystery remains. All the Soviet missions, and later the Russian ones, sent to investigate came back with more questions than answers. Whenever a theory nears the truth, something doesn't add up. New inconsistencies emerge. New data contradict previous hypotheses. It's like the Tunguska event has an aura of resistance around it. The same goes for the explanation, as if it doesn't want to be understood. What happened on the morning of June 30, 1980? The cultural impact. But now let's move on to the cultural impact that this event had on a global level. When something defies explanation, people turn to imagination. Because despite scientific theories, atmospheric models, and computer simulations, that gigantic boom in the heart of Siberia continues to resonate not only in the fallen forest, but also in popular culture. The Tunguska enigma symbolizes unresolved mysteries in our relationship with the universe. From sci-fi novels to apocalyptic games, this mystery has been reimagined countless times. We find it in the stories of Arthur Clarke in Marvel Comics, in scattered references in X-Files, and even in video games like Call of Duty and Assassin's Creed Chronicles. Tunguska becomes the perfect backdrop for global conspiracies, alien invasions, and government secrets. But it's not just fiction. Even in reality, the impact zone has become surrounded by an almost mystical aura, isolated, inaccessible, hostile. For some, it's off limits, like the Bermuda Triangle or Area 51. A place where the laws of nature seem to falter, and where science, no matter how advanced, cannot fully penetrate. Some visitors have reported crazed compasses, deformed plants, and strange lights at night. And even if many of these stories are probably exaggerated or the result of suggestion, they help build the myth. But perhaps what makes Tunguska truly fascinating is the way it sits on the thin border between the rational and the unknown. Scientists search for meteorite evidence, isotopes, and cosmic residues, while other theories suggest quantum energy, failed secret experiments, or alien involvement. Tunguska is a living reminder that even in an era dominated by satellites and supercomputers, there are still events that escape logic, and maybe that's exactly its power, fueling that ancestral thrill we feel when faced with the unexplainable. Reminding us that beneath the orderly surface of the world, there still exists a shadow of mystery that no light has yet dispelled. After more than a century, the truth about the event continues to slip through our fingers like sand. We have reviewed the most widely accepted hypotheses, yet no explanation has managed to close the case once and for all. Why? Maybe because we haven't found enough evidence, or maybe we've found too much and we no longer know how to interpret it. But what do you think about this incredible event? Are you inclined to believe the scientific hypotheses that were proposed at the time? Or do you think the truth could be something else? Let me know in a comment. Spiegabile Podcast is an original series by Luca Perella with sound design by Matteo D'Alessandro. If you like this episode, subscribe on YouTube or share it with friends. Greetings, and see you at the next episode of L'Inspiegabile.